Hello! I hope everyone is doing well. I'm wearing the same hoodie I wore yesterday that is in today's video. Well, the video that I uploaded today. And I am going to be talking about some books that I recommend if you are inside and you have more free time, or if you're just looking for some book recommendations. First off, I do want to mention that I've seen a few other people do videos like these so far, and some people are like focusing on books that are really comforting to them or that, are more escapist. I don't know, I'm just sort of recommending some books here. And a video that I watched earlier today is from Noelle Gallagher, whose video I will link in the description, and she mentioned how she's just very grateful and she feels very privileged and thankful that this is sort of the situation that we're in right now she is in particular, she doesn't know anybody. I mean, I'm assuming, since this is what she says in her video, I'm assuming that she doesn't know anybody being greatly affected by what's going on right now. I guess YouTube's kind of being weird about people mentioning things specifically in their videos, and I think it's kind of you kind of know what's happening if you're watching this video when I'm putting it up. So I'm not being specific. That's why. I guess YouTube's being weird about it. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I've heard. Anyway, she mentioned that she's just very thankful and grateful and feels privileged that what we have to do right now is just sort of stay inside and we can read books and watch movies and watch TV shows, and that's all we have to do. Speaking of movies and TV shows, oh, shoot, wait, no, I was going to talk about music in this video too. Okay, I have to remember that, even though, I don't know, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'll put it in the description if I forget. Yeah, so speaking of movies and TV shows, I already recorded a video talking about recommendations for movies and shows on various streaming services, and in the video I uploaded today and posted today, I was like, I'm gonna edit that down a lot, probably, and things like that, and it ended up being really long. And now I'm kind of thinking I'm just gonna refilm it. I'm not 100% sure, but I should make a decision on that, because that's more prevalent to right now, because I chose things that are available on streaming services right now. So, but yeah, I might end up refilming that. I might just put up the really long video that I haven't started editing yet because I was iffy on what I was going to do. Anyway, we're going to get to the books, because I always have a few minutes of just an introduction and preface. So, let's start off with my first recommendation here. I feel like this, you kind of just saw it, but I feel like this is a good time, if you do have more free time, to pick up some bigger books, or maybe books that you've been putting off for a while. Up to you, obviously. And so my first recommendation here is Anna Karenina, and it's by Lev Tolstoy, or Leo Tolstoy, as we have Americanized it. I love this book. This at one point was the longest book I had ever read. This copy I think is 764 pages. 54 pages. 754 pages. This is just the Barnes & Noble Classic, translated by Constance Garnett, in case you're wondering who the translator is. I will talk about this more in my catching up video that I plan on doing soon, in late January, so that to me apparently is recently. I rewatched the 2012 film adaptation of this, and I remember the first time I watched it, I kind of had mixed feelings. My mind has changed. I love the 2012 adaptation, and I loved it so much, and it gave me such a different perspective. It really focuses on Anna, because, I feel like if you don't know what this is about, you kind of assume it's just about her, but really there's a cast of characters. But when I read this book for the first time, my favorite character is Levin, and then second favorite character would be Kitty, and I was really focused more on their story and what they were up to and stuff. And with this movie, I was so focused on Anna that I was no, I have to reread this book, and and focus more on her story in it. But it does have a cast of characters. There's Anna, who is married to Karenina, and she has a brother, Stepan, who is married to Dolly, whose sister is Kitty, and there's Levin, who is friends with Stepan, and I think those are all the major characters. And I mean, like, the society that they live in is really prominent and significant in the story. It's just about how these characters interact a lot. Oh my god. There's also Vronsky, who Anna has an affair with. That's that's a major part of the book. Yeah, so it's about this affair that Anna has, and it's about the politics and economics and just societal expectations and norms and farming. There are chapters in this book that are like literally just Levin talking about farming, and they're great. I feel like this book is actually very different from when you hear about like the chapters in Les Miserables, where it's like talking about the Paris plumbing sewer system, and then in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, there are just chapters of like talking about French architecture, and people, I feel like, are bored at those parts, and it kind of hits a low point. People love the chapters on farming from Levin. I feel like Levin is a popular like favorite character from a lot of people, so I really want to reread this, but I'm not exactly sure when I'm actually going to start it. But it's on, I wrote it down as a goal, a reading goal this year, to at least like start rereading it. Anna Karenina. I feel like maybe I should say a trigger warning for a major thing that happens at the end of this book, or towards the end of this book, but it's also like a big spoiler if you don't know the story of Anna Karenina. I keep like switching back and forth between saying it more in like the Russian way and saying it like in English, so sorry about that. I think I'll leave it maybe in a comment, a pinned comment, but do like the thing where it's like enter, so that you have to click read more in order to see the spoiler and the trigger warning. Also, in this video I haven't mentioned it yet because I'm assuming maybe you watched my last video, maybe you didn't, but I got a new phone, and that's what I film on. I can see the lines moving. It's really annoying, and I think it's gonna end up being like in my videos. I don't think it's that distracting, but please, I hope you can forgive it, I guess. I don't really know what to do about it. It's from my lights in my room, so yeah, I don't want to talk about it for too long. So the next book that I have to recommend is actually kind of a similar situation to Anna Karenina, because We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, which I recently watched the film adaptation of. This was like a first time watch for me though, the movie from 2018. And again, like similarly, I guess, it gave me a different perspective because I picked up on things in the film that I didn't get at all from the book, and I would very much like to reread this. But this is more like easier to do because it's so short. This copy is probably, yeah, it's 158. It's about 150 pages. This copy is, so it's pretty short. So I really want to reread it to see if what I got from the film is actually in the story, or if that's just an interpretation that they went with more in the film. And yeah, so I don't know if like it's actually in the book and it just missed me and it just like went over my head and I didn't realize it, or if it's maybe more implied, maybe it can be there, maybe it isn't there. Do you get what I'm saying? We Have Always Lived in the Castle is about Mary Cat and Constance Blackwood, yes, Blackwood, who live in this old family house with their Uncle Julian, and the rest of their family was killed by Constance. And they kind of, fitting, they isolate themselves a lot and just stay in their house, or on their estate, I guess, on their property, away from the rest of the town, who look down on them in a way because they think because the Blackwood family is rich that they look down on the townspeople. The townspeople are very mean. And a disturbance in their life comes about. I'm not phrasing that in a way that I like, but their cousin Charles comes and disrupts their life pretty much. And I saw actually I really liked the film adaptation. I'm not 100% sure, obviously, how accurate it is because it's been a while since I've read this, and as I just said, I picked up on things that I don't remember being in the book, but it may have been there and I just didn't pick up on it. I saw some like reviews and comments on Letterboxd when I was logging it, and some people were like really expecting a horror movie because Shirley Jackson is known for being like a sort of modern gothic horror author, and I feel like people sort of mistake the horror for like actually scary. Like, I don't really think it's that scary in the way that you think of like a horror movie or a scary movie. Even though this is the only book I've read from her, I would consider her more of like an American Gothic sort of tone, which makes sense because I'm pretty sure she is. Oh my god, is she American or is she British? I don't know. I thought she was American, but now I'm questioning it. Okay. And then there was one more thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, the film was actually done by the same people who did the Netflix adaptation of another Shirley Jackson novel, The Haunting of Hill House. So if you liked that, then maybe you would also like this movie. I haven't seen The Haunting of Hill House, so I can't say that for sure. Also, it probably is a big difference between like a TV series and a movie. But anyway, We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And then another book that I'm not really going to go into that much. I feel like fantasy and fantastical or supernatural books would be a really good recommendation. Reading the Harry Potter series again or for the first time would be great right now, I feel like. But I am going to recommend something that I've talked about many times before, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the first book in the Raven cycle, which has 4 books total, even though there's like a spin-off trilogy in the works. The first book has been released so far. And I have like 3-ish video discussions on this book. Just this book. Like, I'm currently in the middle of the second book. Yeah, I have like 3 videos dedicated to just this one book. And it's me just like really talking about it and talking about how much I like it and what I like about it and discussing like the characters and my theories for things. So if you've read The Raven Boys and would like to hear me just ramble on about it, I'll link those in the description, as well as Noelle's video that I talked about in the beginning. Since I mentioned it, I like to at least link the things that I'm mentioning. I'm not going to get into this a lot because I have talked about it before. It is about Blue, who lives in a house of psychics, and everyone there except her is a psychic. She doesn't have powers, but she can, well, like, she isn't a psychic, but she sort of has powers in the way that she can enhance the psychic's powers. And it also has to do with the Raven Boys, Gansey, Adam, Noah, Ronan. They're known as the Raven Boys, and they are on a quest to find this dead Welsh king who supposedly isn't dead, and there's a legend where if you find his body, that he will grant you 3 wishes. And that is a really vague synopsis. There's a lot more to it. Highly recommend it. I've talked about it a lot. And then we have a few more classics that I thought I would mention. I specifically was going to recommend Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. And then I also recommend watching the 1995 film adaptation if you have that available somewhere for you. So Sense and Sensibility is about 2 sisters, Eleanor and Marianne. Their father dies and leaves everything to their older half-brother, so they have to move out of their house because he inherited everything, and they have to find somewhere else to live, and it just has to do with their lives now, that they don't have as much money as that they used to have, and it has to do with their love lives mostly. It's Jane Austen. I feel like a lot of people associate romance or like the romance genre with Jane Austen, but she's also very satirical. This is the first Jane Austen book that I read, and I feel like it took me a few chapters to like get into her humor and to really be like in the mood for this sort of satire that she has in her novels, because she is very satirical and very critical of the society of the time through her satire. I remember like the first chapter or so, or maybe it's not the first chapter, but it's one of the first chapters where the older the brother's wife is talking about what his father meant by helping the sisters and helping the daughters of the family, pretty much, who are from his other wife. And when I was reading the chapter, it wasn't really funny, but then I was like explaining it to my mom one time when we were just talking about the books that we were reading, and I was like laughing as I was explaining it, or kind of like I was thinking of it in a more comical way than when I actually read the chapter. Because she just goes on and she's like, oh, he meant just, you know, help them by giving them this much money a month or a week or something like that. Oh, but maybe, you know, they have this and this, so maybe even less than that. Maybe even less than that. You know what? He didn't even mean give them any money. He just meant help them find a place to live, or like something like that. And she just keeps diminishing like what the dad meant when he said take care of the rest of your family, pretty much. And I would say that this is my second favorite Jane Austen novel that I've read. Actually my least favorite, but the film adaptation is currently out in theaters. I'm not sure what's happening with things that are in the theaters right now, but currently there's the new adaptation of Emma, which again I just said is my least favorite Jane Austen book that I've read personally, but I know some people who really love it. My personal favorite is Mansfield Park, and this is about Fanny Price, who has a lot of siblings, and her parents have decided to send her away to Mansfield Park to live with her aunt. And her aunt married someone with status, unlike Fanny's mother, who married for love and didn't mind that they're very poor, basically, compared to the extended family. So Fanny goes to live with her aunt and cousins, and again, it's just sort of like her life there at Mansfield Park. It also has to do with her love life to an extent. I don't really like to focus on like the romance aspect again, because there are a lot to Jane Austen's novels, but I love Fanny Price, by the way. Oh, you know, I think it's Olive at a Book Olive. She has a really good, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think it's her. I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it's her. She has a video about Fanny Price and how she's like an underrated heroine, and how, like, yeah, it's really good though. I really like Fanny Price because I agree. I think that people think she's like boring, but it really has to do with the way that she like sees herself, and I don't know, I feel like if I start talking about it, I'm just going to keep going on and on about it. So I'm going to continue with the recommendations, but I'll link the video in the description that I am talking about. I also really love historical fiction, everything except the Raven Boys. Everything that I've mentioned except for the Raven Boys and like the Harry Potter series have all been classics so far. A recent-ish book, this century at least, is a historical fiction that I'm going to recommend, and that is The House at Riverton by Kate Morton. The font color is kind of hard to see. But The House at Riverton is a historical fiction novel, and I felt like this is just the one that's easiest to summarize in terms of plot. It's my second favorite Kate Morton novel. She's one of my favorite authors. My personal favorite is The Forgotten Garden, but she has like 6 books now, so you really could go with any one of them. This is her first novel, and it is about Grace, who is pretty much on her deathbed, and she is being interviewed by a filmmaker who I think is her grandson. I can never remember if like her grandson and the filmmaker are the same person or if they're 2 different people. But she's being interviewed, and she's telling the story of what happened at this party that's really famous from, I think it happened in 1924, and it happened at the House at Riverton, where she was a maid, or like a maidservant to the family, specifically one of the daughters, Hannah. And at this party, a young man who was a poet shot himself, and Grace is one of the witnesses and the only person left alive who knows what truly happened at this party. And as much as it is about, you know, this event and what happened, it gives a whole backstory. Something I love about Kate Morton's books is that she really gives like a good history. you usually meet characters at a young age, and then you see them grow up, and you see what happens even after specific events. Like, even though she always has like a mystery like weaved into the story of her novels, but I wouldn't read them just for the mystery. I feel like they're such like character driven books that even though I am really wrapped up in like the mystery as well, I just get so engaged with the characters and what's happening in their lives, even if it doesn't have to do necessarily with this main mystery. And then I also feel like it's a good time to maybe pick up some nonfiction. I don't know, it's always a good time to pick up some nonfiction. I just feel like we don't do it as much as we should. So I just chose a couple of books that I have. First, I have one of the many biographies about Sylvia Plath that I have. Did I say that? How did I start that sentence? First, I have, yes, one of the many biographies that I have on Sylvia Plath, Mad Girl's Love Song by Andrew Wilson, and this one specifically, as the subtitle says, specifically focuses on the time before she met Ted Hughes, who she ended up marrying in her early 20s, I think. Oh my god. It's kind of crazy that I don't know how old she was when she married Ted Hughes, but I'd say early to mid-20s. Sylvia Plath is the author of The Bell Jar and a poet, and The Bell Jar is my favorite book, by the way, if you didn't know. And if you're interested in Sylvia Plath and want to know more about her, this is a biography I recommend. I guess that's all I can really say about it. She was somebody who dealt with depression and suicidal actions, so definitely some trigger warnings there if you need to know about that. I feel like it doesn't go as deep into that area of her life. Something I like about this is that I feel like there are people in her life that I didn't really know about that were mentioned in here. And it really does have more to do with like her life and other people in context of her life, if that makes sense. Yes, but mental illness is a topic that will often come up in something that is about Sylvia Plath. And then another nonfiction book I have is Last Night at the Viper Room by Gavin Edwards. The subtitle is River Phoenix and the Hollywood He Left Behind. I really love River Phoenix, and I don't know, I just really love River Phoenix. This goes into a lot of his life. I learned so much about like his early childhood and like being part of like his parents were pretty much part of a cult, and then just like the circumstances that they were living in after they got out of the cult, and how he came to be an actor. And then of course his younger brother is Joaquin Phoenix, who I feel like is definitely, probably because he's still alive and a prominent actor now, more people know of Joaquin Phoenix as opposed to River Phoenix. Also, if you just wanted to learn about the way in which Joaquin Phoenix grew up, because they were brothers, you could read this to learn more about him. But I like how this goes into, specifically at the end, something I'm interested in, even though it's all very like skeptical and I don't know if skeptical is the right word, but like you'd never know for sure. But I love the sort of like River Phoenix theory, so to speak, of like how Hollywood would be and like what movies would be like had he not died. If you didn't know, River Phoenix died at the age of 23 from a drug overdose. So drugs are a part of this, but I wouldn't say are like prevalent, in case like you need to know about drug stuff in books. I don't know, are drugs a trigger warning technically? But anyway, many of the roles that he was supposed to do actually ended up going to Leonardo DiCaprio, which I think is so, like, what a coincidence. And like, I know that even though I don't think River Phoenix would have been right for the role, but he was James Cameron's #1 choice for Jack in Titanic. I don't see it, but like, how weird would that be? Oh yeah, I just think it's really interesting. I can't like get into it too much, but there's a lot of like films that ended up not being able to follow through with production because he died, or they were put off a really long time, like Milk. the film called Milk. I don't know the year of that, like 2010, maybe 2012. Yeah, so interesting. And then really quickly, I did want to recommend, right now I'm currently listening to King Arthur, History and Legend, technically like by Professor Dorsey Armstrong, as part of the Great Courses, which is available on Audible. And it's really interesting. It's super informational. I kind of wish like I had a physical book. It does come with like a PDF file that you can download that has information and stuff, which again, I wish I had like physically. I don't know. I feel it's like almost 200 pages, so I feel like I shouldn't print it, but yeah, it's really interesting. And so if there's something, they have a lot of different areas of subjects on the Great Courses, like in the Great Courses audiobooks. So I recommend that one so far. I'm only like 4 hours into it or something, but it's really interesting, and I like listening to nonfiction as well, especially if it's like a memoir or an autobiography that's narrated by the author. Yeah. But those are all my recommendations. If you've read any of these, I'd love to know what you think of them. If you have other recommendations for me based on these books, I'd love to hear your recommendations. I hope everyone is doing well. If there's anything that I'm forgetting about, I will put it in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.